Well, the World Pork Expo has earned its title. It has become the world's largest pork industry trade show, which brings together pork professionals and industry leaders from all around the world. That expo took place this week at the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines, Iowa. And my Rural Radio Network colleague, Chad Moyer, is standing by with this update. Chad?
Thank you very much there, Bryce. At this week's World Pork Expo, which took place at the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines, producers from all over the region, all across the country, and from around the world for that matter, took in the latest in agriculture, in pork production, techniques, and various different things, and also heard kind of a situation and outlook. And providing that here at World Pork Expo was Steve Meyer with EverAg. Steve, thanks for joining us here today. First of all, it's been a tough couple of years in pork production. I guess as we come into 2024, what is the situation? Are things getting a little better?
It is better, but not good. I would characterize as that. Last year was clearly a terrible year for pork producers. In fact, our model, which really represents the low-cost 25% of producers, would say that losses were in excess of $27 a head last year. Now, that is strict cash purchase of corn, soybean meal, strict cash marketing of hogs, no risk management involved in that. And we think there was a substantial amount of risk management done that probably mitigated some of that $27, but it was a terrible year, just, no matter how you cut it. This year is better. It's not going to be a year for much healing, it doesn't look like. Back in March, that same model had us with $10 profits for the year. Now that model has with $2 losses for the year. And so things have gotten a little softer as we've gone through the year. So I guess it's one of those bide your time type of things. You need to take advantage of profits when you can do them. But it's certainly not as bad a year as we had last year.
That's on domestic demand. What about internationally and the significance of imports?
That's been a good story. We exported about 26% of our production last year. We're going to be in excess of 27 this year. That should be a record. We grew about 8% on exports last year. Our colleague Brett Stewart at Global AgriTrends has us up about 9% for this year. And so that's been good. Mexico's leading the way, of course. Korea has been a very nice surprise this year that has grown dramatically, largely because of problems that the EU has had in supplying the export market. And we don't think those problems are going away. So we think we're going to be in pretty good shape going forward here on the export side. So that's been the real positive on demand, where we're shipping about 2% more of our product overseas now than we were a year ago.
All right. What about on the input side for pork producers? I mean, obviously we've got a lot of growing season to go yet, but what are we looking at for corn, soybean meal, and on the input side?
Well, that's improved, but again, improving from last year isn't saying much. That same cost model that represents the low-cost 25% of producers had a $97 break-even on it for the average of 2023. That would put average producers well over $100 on break-evens. This year, that same model is telling us $87, which would put average producers somewhere in the low 90s, low to mid 90s. And so an improvement there, but lower is not low. And I don't think we're going much lower than where we are now, somewhere probably in the mid to low 80s on break-evens if we have a really good crop. And we've got a real potential for that. But as you know, we're setting in early June, so it all depends on what happens in July and August on that. So we're in better shape on costs now than we were a year ago. But still, I don't think you should be penciling in any big breaks on costs as we go through 2024 and into 25.
Okay. I guess just as we wrap up, Steve, take me through the rest of the year and into 2025. What are some things that you'll be watching, and what are some things that could maybe influence the market one way or the other?
Well, we're sure going to watch the status of domestic demand. I mean, I watch that all the time anyway, and we're kind of locked in that we have to wait for the export numbers to come out for a given month before we can figure out how much consumption was in the United States to do those calculations. So we'll be looking at the actual April numbers come Friday when the export data comes out. So we'll watch that very close, and that's a real factor. We're going to be watching exports to see if they stay as strong as they have been. We think they will. That's going to be mainly determined by Mexico, and there's no reason for them not to be buying, especially with a very strong currency that's going to stay current. And then obviously we'll be watching the weather to see what happens on the cost side. I don't think we're going to see any significant drop in hog numbers. I mean, even though we might keep the sow herd lower than it was, productivity continues to grow. We think that slaughter this year is going to be larger than last year, even though with all those losses you'd think it'd be smaller, but it isn't. And then I think at 2025 slaughter is going to be up probably 1 to 2% as well.
And no real change in capacity, I would imagine, processing capacity.
Not really any changes, no.
Yeah. All right, Steve, thanks for the insight. I appreciate it much.
You bet, Chad. Thank you.
Again, we've been visiting with Steve Meyer with Ever Ag here at World Pork Expo. Again, it took place this week in Des Moines. Bryce, back to you.